the clubs today, like the club behind me, is a dance club. House music, the typical thing you would hear on Zed. Many of the other clubs down the street here are basically the same too. The Old Town Pump down in Gastown, which is now Sonars, it's a dance club. And with the advent changes of music, the DJs and the people get a chance to do their thing, and it seems to be their kind of era. But also probably one of the main reasons is that the cost of bringing in talent night after night after night. And Vancouver is typical of many major cities in North America. It's a Friday, Saturday night town. And any of these clubs, except for the Commodore, which is always live music, lineups start at 10 o'clock at night. On Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, there isn't probably in the whole downtown core 500 people in the clubs. So there's only a very few that are still live, and that's unfortunate for the young artists on their way up because they don't have a place to play. And that's really, it's a good scene but a bad scene. The town is very vibrant musically, but not as much probably live acts as I'd like to see because I'm a live music man. Yeah. And that's really what's happening.
Way to go. Thank you, Del. I could probably talk for 2 or 3 hours about the Commodore, but we won't do that. I took over the Commodore in 1968 up to 1996. 28 years of my life I spent in here, and I can honestly say with all the artists and the wonderful people that went through, it was a delight. In the era of time when I became so-called a promoter, fortunately the big bands were still around, and I'm so pleased to have had Count Basie and Duke Ellington, who else, Woody Herman, Stan Kenton, the drummer, Del, Buddy, and on it went. And then I changed the Pat Morgan, yes, definitely, and many others. Of course, Del and Mark played many times for me. And then I started swinging formats over to the B.B. Kings and the Muddy Waters, and we got into the Reggaes, Toots and the Maytals, and on and on it went. We guesstimated before I left the Commodore that when it opened its doors on December the 3rd of 1929, that over 6 million people had walked through the Commodore door. When I first took it over, of course, it was still unlicensed. Liquor licenses weren't available then. In those days, of course, as at the other clubs, the bottles went under the table. I still had the old switch when I ran it. Of course, they renovated, but the original switch was there that the doorman would press when the dry squad would come, and whoever the band was playing that night, that was prior to my time. Of course, that meant put your bottle, hide it, or you didn't own it. And some of the tables still had little slots to slip the bottle underneath. So I have marvelous memories of the Commodore. The people that own the Commodore now is the House of Blues. And of course, I wish them great success. It'll be 70 years old, the Commodore, I believe, this year. And of course, I wish it goes on for at least another 70 years. I could tell you all kinds of other stories, which I won't because there's kids on the block here. But we had lots of fun, great parties. One of the proud things that I've had in my business with bands, I never ever had an argument with a band in 28 years. I love their music. I try to accommodate them as we try to with the customers. And for me, it's just been a marvelous experience. I'm out of it now. Do I miss it? Yes, I do. But on the other side, perhaps 80%, no, I don't. 14-hour days are getting a little too much for me. And I think I'll end it there. Thank you so much, Del. Oh, you might want to know about the dance club. Del mentioned that. There were many stories that it had railway springs underneath it, rubber tires, horsehair, and many other things. Now, it did have horsehair, and so in 1929 there must have been an awful lot of bald horses running around the city of Vancouver. Vancouver. I still have samples of that. It did have rubber tires. They were the old rubber tires, I guess, of 1929, no air in them. And in 1996, in January of 96, we tore the floor up and replaced it. And in that floor, we found old patches of cigarettes I'd never heard of, bottles of whiskey that had been put in there. And of course, needless to say, when it was rebuilt, we did the same thing. So, and that floor had lasted 67 years. And that's what gave it its spring. And actually, it was really two floors. The dance floor that you danced on was only about 8 inches deep, and then there was a kind of a second floor below it with wood that was sort of on a perpendicular. So the top did float, literally float. And in those days, it was the rubber and the horsehair that gave the resilience. The new stuff that went in, of course, they have new products now, cork that's very resilient and so on, and the floor still bounces, which the stores down below here, particularly with all the new bands and the kids love so much, this building rocks, let me tell you. It's like Earthquakeville on a Saturday night. If a band, and I see a band, I think they're playing here tomorrow night, it'll be like that. Don't go into the stores after 9 o'clock, take my word for it. And that's what I can tell you about the dance floor. And anything else you might think of? I think that's it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
I'd just like to verify something Susan passing.